Here we are again, folks. Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. So proud to be with you today. I am resolved, and the name of this tidbit is I am resolved to serve Jesus Christ with all my body, my soul, and my spirit. I am resolved to take on a daily basis, learning more and more about God's book, God's Bible, God's land, His holy place, the place He chose, the center of the earth, Jerusalem, the lowest point on the earth, the Dead Sea, and God chose to be there. The mountains, I'm going to go in sometime in this excerpt or the next one and name the mountains that are around that great Rift Valley, and how God knows that it could make it be the promised land. It could be the promised land. All of the snow on those mountains melting different periods of time. More water, or enough water to make everything in that valley to be flourish. I'm resolved this year to some things. In January 1st, we make New Year resolutions. I never keep them as a general rule. I make them and then they just fly away. I even forgot what resolutions I made many times. But this year, I have made a resolution to get more in the book, to learn more than I can. Listen, I want to know Ezekiel when I get to heaven. I want to know Jeremiah. I want to know Isaiah. I want to know Joel. I want to know all of the old Ezra. I want to know the Old Testament saints when I get there. I want to know those 12 boys that started the 12 tribes all the way from Issachar through. I want to know them when I get there. I want to know Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I want to know those guys. I want to know Paul. When I see him, I want to say, you got to be Paul. And I want to know. And by the way, Jesus bore the marks in his body, his resurrected body. When he came down to the earth, he came down in a resurrected body and he bore the marks. How long will he have those marks? I do not know. I'm suspecting until the new heaven and the new earth comes about, he will have those marks. Paul may bear the marks. Timothy may bear the marks. Many of those that were sacrificed in the name of God will have those marks on them, I suspect. And we will know those fellows. Oh, let's hope that we can get there with some kind of mark on us that would say that we were worthy enough to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ. Hey, I have resolved in this year to put behind me 100% the past. Put the past 100% behind me. For it to never come up and beat me over the head from what I did in the past. Do you know that yesterday, did you know that 5 minutes ago is past? If supposedly I had 5 minutes ago blew my stack and I asked God to forgive me, do you know that He cast in the sea of forgetfulness and it's in the past? I could say, God, remember a few minutes ago when I did this and that? And He'd say, no, I don't remember. I cast that in the sea of forgetfulness. Never more to be remembered. You and I, as finite little beings, we can remember more than we ought to. God does not remember these things against us. God is love. God is perfection. He is the God that wants to have total fellowship with us. He doesn't want anything between us and Him. So He cast it into the sea of forgetfulness. All we have to do is say, I'm going to press on to the greater and the more achieving this year of the learning of the gospel of God. The Bible, 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament. Have you learned how to thumb through those? Those of you out there that are using your telephone for your Bible, you are missing the action in the Bible. You are missing a good Bible with good side notes. You can read that scripture right there, and it can do you absolutely positively not one drop of good if you don't purpose to find out what it's saying. You got to purpose to find out what it's saying. And you can read one verse, and if you start following one verse at a time on that telephone, you're going to find yourself way off in left field somewhere. And you don't have the whole picture of the whole book. You got to have the whole picture. When you're playing baseball, you need to see the whole field. When you're out there in the outfield and there's a ball coming in the air, you need to be able to see where it's coming from, how far to run, and how to get under it, how to catch it, and where it is, whether the sun's in your eyes or not. That's why you need the book in front of you when you're studying the Bible. One verse is not enough. You got to be able to see the whole picture and find it. Are you going to be a greater achiever this year than you were last year? Can you start today, this the 6th month and the 13th day? By the way, my wife told me a statistic today I didn't know. She said it will be over 40 years before there will be a Friday the 13th again in this month. Be over 40 years. Can you imagine that? I was born on the 13th. My wife was born on the 13th. We got 2 lucky mamas. And so that's kind of a joke. But I want to put, in my life, I would like to put first things first. Do you know that you have to purpose to do that? You have absolutely, positive, 100% got to purpose to put first things first, or they'll never come first. You got to say, tomorrow morning when I hit the floor, before I hit the floor, I'm going to say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Use the King James Version. Study. Use the King James Version. Some other versions have changed the words in that prayer, and they don't mean what I just said. What I just said, there is a depth in the meaning of every one of those little 3-word sentences. There is a depth that God put in there. Man has taken it out in some of the versions of the Bible. And I should say the perversions of the Bible, because if they're not the same, they're not the same. If it's not the same, it is not the same. And that is the truth. Listen, I want to have this year, I want the joy in my life to overtake my life, so that there is, if there is a day of misery come along, I want to fill it with joy. Can you fill a miserable day with joy? You can if you purpose to do it. You have got to purpose in your heart that you are going to have a joyous day in spite of the misery that's around you. Why, there's miserable people everywhere. Long-lived, unhappy people. If you will allow them, they will drag you down. Do not let them throw the anchor out of their boat and catch you with it, because I'll tell you what, the current that's pulling them will drag you with them. Be careful how you walk around people. Say, hey, Paul, listen. Let's pray. Put your hand on the shoulder, pray with him, and say, Lord, please help this man out of where he is today, or woman. And get on your way, get out of the way, and get back to where you're supposed to be. Allow nothing. You should allow nothing to disturb your peace and your peace of mind. Don't let anything disturb the peace in your heart and your peace of mind. You would say, Brother Peter, can you do that? Yeah. You know what it is? It's a on-purpose act. On-purpose act. I'm riding with my lovely wife of 50-something years in the car today. And she took on this little gnawing thing for a second, which doesn't do very often. But how come you drive this way? How come you drive so fast? How come you get across the white line? How come you don't stay in the middle? How come this? How come that? And I'm saying to myself, Peter, just keep your mouth shut. And I'm saying, Lord, deliver me from being ugly now or anything, or coming back. And just be quiet. That's what I did. In a few minutes, she's sitting over there going, she's mumbling about something. And she was mumbling because I paid no attention. And I told her, just kind of jokingly, I said, hey, babe, do you remember that I'm deaf in this ear? She said, yeah, you're just like your father was. He's as stubborn as a mule, and he wasn't going to hear nothing he didn't want to hear. But listen, life is fun, life is a pleasure, life is good when it's bad. Life is good when it's bad. What makes your life bad? You know what makes it bad? For you to accept the bad that's around you, and then you make your life bad. The bad can be around you, but you don't have to accept it. You can say, well, I'll tell you what, one of the best things I can remember when I was probably 8 years old, my sister was learning how to drive. I was sitting in the back seat. My father was sitting in the front. And my sister was fixing to turn a corner. And my dad hollered, you're going to hit that taxi cab. She did. Broadside hit that cab. Picked his wheels right up off the ground. Here we are sitting there. And she's locked down the brakes and pulled the emergency brake and everything. The cab's sitting up on its side. The fella gets out of the cab. I don't remember if he got out the other side or how he got out. But he came over and he looked in the window and he said, are y'all all right? Dad said, yeah, we're all right. He said, well, little lady, you just bought a taxi cab. So I remember that. He was as calm as a cucumber. It didn't bother him one bit that she just totaled his cab out. And he just stayed calm. You know something? That's good, because you can't, no sense in crying over spilt milk. The cab was bent already. It was sitting up there bent. He couldn't do anything about it. So he just said, little lady, you just bought you a taxi cab. That was so good. And you know what? I was about 8 years old then. But I had a picture in my mind of a calmest man I ever met. He didn't get frustrated about it didn't disturb the peace of his mind. You know what I resolved to do this year? Not lose self-control. Just like that cab driver. I'm not going to lose self-control. Lord willing, I'm going to definitely work every second of the day when something comes at me that would cause me to lose self-control, to just maintain it. Just maintain it. Just maintain control and let that wash get by. And after it's by, it's done, it's gone. Just like a wave coming on the seashore. And by the way, troubles in this world are like the waves coming on the shore. They come one behind the other. One right behind the other. One right behind the other. One right behind the other. What are you going to do? You're going to try to live in those troubles and put them all in your head and all in your heart and in your mind and in your life. Well, you're going to have a miserable life. And people around you are probably going to be miserable too. My suggestion to you is get in the Word. Get enough of God in your heart. Get close enough to Jesus so that you can call on Him. Do you know that there is nowhere in the whole Bible, in Jesus' 33 years, that He ever lost control or anything? When He scourged the guys that were selling in the temple, that was called righteous indignation. He was not mad. He was righteously saying, y'all get out of here. Y'all just get out of here. He was not doing that madly. He was saying, you don't belong here doing this type of thing. You just get on out of here. And so he didn't lose his self-control. I want to spend so much time improving myself this year instead of spending any time disproving myself. I want to improve. I want to improve mainly. The mainstream of my improvement is get closer to Jesus, closer to the Lord, closer to the book, closer to praying, closer to when I walk out this door. I go out like I am right now, an ambassador for Jesus Christ. I walk out this door into the mainstream and I walk up to somebody. they know that I'm a Christian. I bought several bottles of drink today at a grocery store, and the lady said, y'all having something going on at the church, having a party at the church or something. Why did she say that? I didn't know her from Adam, and she didn't know me from Eve. And here we are, and I'm in a store. But she knew I was a Christian. She knew I had to do with the church. And I told her, not this week I'm not, but next week we are, and the week after, and the week after, we got camp, and we got all kinds of things going on. But people need to know by the vibes that you put off that you're a Christian without even saying a word. We were eating in a restaurant one day, my wife and I. This guy over there, him and his wife were talking. They were way over outside, quite a ways too, by the way. And they were talking. And in a few minutes, I guess she challenged him. He got up. He walked over past the food bar all the way down around the corner and over where I was sitting. And he said to me, are you a preacher? And I said, yeah, I'm an evangelist. He said, my wife and I thought you were. He turned around and walked back to the table where he was. Why, that's good. I would love to have an aura about me that I'm close enough to God that people would seek out. If there was a wreck and I get out of my car and I'm standing there, that somebody would say, hey, preacher, come here. And they don't know me from Adam, but they know I'm a preacher. I love that. I love that. Be close enough to God, have self-control enough, improve yourself enough. I want to have no time, no time for criticism of others. What makes you think, or I think, that I have a right to criticize somebody else what I see done? I don't know where they're living. I don't know what their situation is. I do not have a right to criticize somebody else. I don't know their heart. God does. If I see somebody having a problem, thing for me to do, put my hand on the shoulder and pray for them. And I do that on a daily basis. I don't care if I know the person or not. I say, would you like me to say a little prayer about this? And don't be a critic. Let God do the criticking. You do the helping. You be the person that you don't look down. Don't look at, hey, I got news for you. That every time you point a finger out, you got 3 pointing back. You got 3 fingers pointing back at you, bub. And you pointing out, you better tie your tongue up. The Bible says man needs to control his tongue. I want to think the best about everybody. Can you look at everybody and think the best of them? Find the best. Everybody's got a best. The worst guy in the worst prison in the world has got a best somewhere in his life. Some people are so bad that anything would be better. And so look for the best. Look for the best, and don't criticize. Work to accept everybody as they are. Accept every single human being you meet as they are. Why, this is a day of tattoos. This is a tough day in the sense of preaching the gospel out. I had a fellow in a little restaurant a little while ago, and it was on Sunday. Church people coming in. There's a fellow sitting there. He got so many earrings on you couldn't count them. I think I asked him, how many you got? I think he said 26 or something. I wasn't bashful about it. I'm talking to him about Jesus. I'm talking to him about getting saved. And tattoos all over him. Earrings stuck all over him, tattoos all over him. Very hard to look at. And keep your mind where you're supposed to have it. On Jesus. This is a man's soul sitting there. Yes, he's had problems. Yes, he's been beguiled by the devil. But it's up to you and I who are Christians, who are saved, to reach that man. I felt so bad today. I passed a man, an older man with a raggedy old coat. And had I been by myself, I had my wife with me, I didn't do it. Had I been by myself, I would have turned around, gone back, and gave a guy a $20 bill and took him down to Goodwill or something and got him a pair of clothes. And should have done that and didn't. That's the past. I'm not going to beat myself up with that. I'm going to say tomorrow I see that man, it's going to be a different story. Tomorrow's going to be a different story. We started last week working, finding in our town, going out, finding out, hey, fella, you know where there's any homeless people? And they said, so-and-so, there's some live down there in them woods. And we went down in those woods and found those people and got them in the church and helping them out. And that's what we need to do. We don't need to criticize a man because he's homeless, because he's got problems. We need to help him out of the problems. So much better than to criticize. Criticism does no good. Never, ever does criticism do any good. Can you be a friend to every single solitary man you meet? Yes, you can. You can be a friend to every person that you meet. You can be a friend to every man, to every woman, to every boy, to every girl, to everybody you meet. I like to try to leave a friendly word to the man that doesn't like me, doesn't want me to give him a try, don't want me to talk about Jesus. I want to still leave him with the fact, whether you like that or not, I'll be your friend anyway. I got a lot of friends I don't like everything they do. I got a lot of friends probably don't like everything I do. But they're my friends. And that's just the way it is. Can you stand up 100% total of the day's time? Can you stand up for what's right and what's true? The only way you can do that is if you got enough of Jesus in you so that you can do that. So that you can tell a man politely, look, sir, I can't do that. A guy came in my yard a while ago, said, I got a way to get cement without paying for it. He said, I got a man that drives a cement truck, and he usually loads up an extra yard or two that more than he needs, and he and I make a deal. And I told him, I said, mister, you're standing on God's property. I got this property. God gave me this property. There's not one single solitary thing on it that's not paid for or belong to somebody else, and I don't want it ever to happen. And I wouldn't take the cement if you wanted to put me in a brand new driveway to the street. I wouldn't take it. Wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And he said, well, you know I'm a preacher. Well, I said, you're a poor example for a man following God if you're stealing. Oh, he said, I'm not stealing. That other guy's bringing it. I said, you're part of it. And I'm not going to have anything to do with it. Don't want anything to do with it. Don't want you to come in my yard and even suggest it. And so I got to be careful. We got to be careful walking in this world that we be true and that we be honest. You know what Paul the apostle did with disappointments? Do you know what he did with the time he was in prison? He said he used them for the better. He used the things for the better. He used them for a stimulant to stimulate him to get closer to God. Him and Silas are hanging in the prison, and they said, hey. Silas said, hey, Paul. Paul says, yeah. Let's sing a song. It's 12 o'clock midnight. They're hanging in chains in a prison, in a wicked dungeon, stinking place, no bathroom, no nothing. You're standing there in your own stuff, and you got all kinds of problems. And he said, let's sing a song. And they sing a hymn. And an angel of the Lord comes down and frees them, sets them out of there. How about that? If you and I, at the time of our biggest discouragement or disappointment comes on us, praise the Lord and sing to the Lord. Sometimes that aggravates my wife. She said, you get aggravated sometimes over a little bitty thing, and here this great big problem we got, and you're whistling a hymn and singing a song? Yeah, it's easier sometimes to face the great big things knowing that God's going to bring you through it than it is the little bitty things. So get careful. My old preacher used to say, the little foxes get the grapes. Be careful, Brother Peter. He said, the little foxes get the grapes. It's those little things disturb your life on a daily basis. And by the end of the day, if you're not careful, you'll have 100 of them little things done disturb you through the day, and you hadn't done what you're supposed to do. So, follow the Lord. Do what you're supposed to do. I want to live on the sunny side of the cloud. Do you know a big black cloud comes over? There's a silver lining on the other side. The sun's shining. If you've been up in a plane before, you know when you get over those clouds, you can look down on a storm. The storm's raining and blowing wind and raising havoc on the earth, and you're up over the top looking down at it. And that's where God is. Even though you're under that dark cloud, you can raise your heart and your mind and your life up to the level of God. He'll accept you. And you can be in the light. I tell my boys a lot of time, I teach boys in Sunday school, 6th and 7th grade, 5th and 6th grade boys, and I tell them, I say, look, I can get under 4 quilts at night and close my eyes or open my eyes, and I've got light. I've got light in my head. I got light under the quilts. I've got the light of God in my life. And it's light enough to give me a light. So I don't see darkness when I close my eyes. I see light. And by the way, it's kind of a purplish kind of light. I love it. And God is my witness that He is my witness. To walk a mile with a smile. You know what? You know what the Lord told those Jewish boys back in the Bible days? That Roman soldiers would come by and say, hey, according to our law, if I tell you you have to carry my bag a mile, and he'd say to that Jewish boy, pick it up. And no matter what that boy was doing or that man was doing, they had to pick that bag up and walk that mile with that man and then put it down. He could make him go the mile, the distance. Do you think that Jewish boy walked that mile with a smile? Probably most of the time not. But if he asked a man that's living close to the Lord, that man would pick the bag up and walk the mile with a smile and perhaps win the man to the Lord. Do you know that Paul the Apostle, when he wrote the book to the Philippians, he was in Thessalonica in prison. He was in jail. Under Roman guard, and the Roman guards he was under were special trained. They weren't just the average everyday. These were top guys from the house of Cornelius, and they came over there and they guarded Paul. There's a couple guys with chains on. Do you know that Paul, even though he's in chains, he got them to allow him to write the book to the Philippians. They said, you can't preach, but we'll let you write. So he wrote on some parchments. By the way, God sent him some parchments to write on. By the way, remember this, here's Paul in chains in a prison. Where's he going to get a quill? Where's he going to get the ink? Where's he going to get the parchments? Where's he going to get all that stuff? He has to win somebody in that prison to the Lord. And after he wins them to the Lord, he said, hey, you know, fella, I have a need for these things. And God sent them to him through the guy he wins to the Lord. Do you know that before he left there, it says in Thessalonians, I believe, it says that you know that the house of Cornelius was won to the Lord. He won the whole house. He won that Roman house to the Lord. He won those guys to the Lord. Hey, do you know that they allowed Paul to become the head in the prison everywhere he went? They said, hey, you got this. You tell them people do this and do that. Just like Joseph. You know what baffles me here is here's Paul. He's in chains, a prisoner, and he's on a ship, and he's headed to Rome. And God said, you're going to Rome. So he knew he wasn't going to die. And he knew, because he knew he wasn't going to die, he didn't care. He's sleeping. He's over there sleeping. And after a while, those guys got scared. The 14 days and nights they had fought the wind and the waves. And here, listen, the mariners, that was the sailors of that day, the best there were. And they were the best there were because, by the way, the man that owned the ship was on it. And Paul was on it. 256 men on that ship. And here it's boisterous and it's about to sink. And Paul said, look, y'all, take a little meat. The Lord has showed me we need some strength. We're going to have to swim. So take a little meat and let's eat. So we eat a meal. And then we're going to throw all other wares overboard. And we're going to throw out the anchors out the back. And we're going to let her run. We're going to turn her loose. And we're going to let her get her stirred and turned around. And they dropped the anchors out and they dragged them away. And they turned around and they cut the anchors loose and let the ship come in into the rocks and smashed it. And Paul said, everybody stay on the ship until it's broke up. When it's broke up, we'll get on boards or any way we can and we'll swim into shore. And they did. Not one single person was lost. And by the way, those soldiers were about to kill themselves because they knew if they lost a prisoner, their life would have been killed for that prisoner. And Paul said, hey, y'all don't do harm to yourself. He told them in the prison don't do harm to themselves when the great jailbreak, and he didn't leave. He stayed there. And so here he is on the ship. He tells, hey, y'all don't worry about it. All of 256 of us going to land on the shore. And these old cannibals over here that live on this island, you ain't got to worry about them either. God's going to have them wine and dine us through the winter and take care of us. And they took care of him for a while. Listen, God was with Paul in such a way that it's unreal. And I want him to be with me that way too. Hey, I see things every day. I used to ride a motorcycle, and I tell people, I say, look, if a deer comes in front of me, I said, Lord, would you stop that next one, please? I've had them come out, stop on the edge of the road, and look up in the air at me as I went by. Dead stopped. That's an instant answer to prayer. An instant answer to prayer. Do you live close enough to the Lord so you can have that in your life? You got to live close to the Lord. You can't just live any old haphazard way. Do what you want to do. Go out and drink in the bars and smoke cigarettes and do a little bit of cussing, a little dirty joke telling and everything. Listen, you need to check your own salvation out if that's your type of life. If you have those things in your life, you need to check your salvation out with fear and trembling and get close to the Lord. I want to live on the sunny side of every cloud. I say that because, hey, I go out here in the yard and I look up and there's cloud, dozens and dozens of clouds. And when you get up every morning and head out to work, there's going to be a dozen clouds. That guy in front of you that's not going fast enough because you didn't get up early enough to say your prayers and get everything done and leave in a good mood. And when you come out the driveway and you have to sit there 10 minutes because somebody is sitting down there talking to somebody else at the end of your driveway, you can't afford to get upset. You have to use that time for prayer time and say, Lord, you know the case. You know what's happening. And then, so those guys leave that were sitting there talking with each other. When you get over by the interstate, you find out that 3 minutes before you got there, they had a terrible wreck. I got news for you. If those two guys hadn't been sitting at the end of the driveway talking, you would have been the one in the wreck. You got to remember, God's watching out for you. He's watching out for his children. And you could have been the one in the wreck. Look, don't get upset at things that happen. God has got everything in control. He is directing your life. I'm going to look ahead with a smile and I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep moving forward, looking ahead with a smile. You say, Brother Peter, boy, tomorrow you're probably going to face a tough day. Well, if I do, I'm going to face it like I just said I was. I'm going to face it with a smile. I face things with a smile. I have a lot of things come at me, and I found out that it takes, I forgot how many they say of these things in your face to frown, and it only takes like 10 to smile, or 3 or 4 to smile, but it takes many, many to go like this. And so I'm going to smile. And besides that, my face is already wrinkled. I don't want to wrinkle it up any more than it is to you. Look, resolve to perform what you ought to. And perform in Luke chapter 16. He said, I am resolved to do. Luke said this. I'm resolved to do what I have to do. I'm resolved to do that. There was a man on this earth in the United States of America. His name was Benjamin Franklin. He wrote a little piece, and this is a piece he wrote. Resolve to perform what you ought, and perform without fail what you resolve. Resolve to perform what you ought to, and then perform it on a daily basis. You can't live tomorrow today. You can't live the next minute of your life this minute. This minute of your life is this minute. The next minute is up to God, what's going to happen and how you're going to live it. I've got to, I had a 30-minute excerpt right here. I've got to cut off right here. And I will see you next time. And I'm going to talk about some Holy Land statistics next time. It would do for you to get in the Bible, to learn about God's spot on this earth where he put his finger and pressed down the lowest place, some 1,300 feet below sea level. God pushed the earth down right there and said, this is where I'm going to dwell for a little while. And this is where the Garden of Eden was. And this is where the land he chose was. And this is the land that he said that he made a promise, and he will never. It's an everlasting promise. Even though this earth is going to be cast into like a fire one day, God's promise is going to hold until the end of this earth. And that spot on this earth is going to be there. And one day, you and I who are saved, who go to be with God, will reign with him from the New Jerusalem in the air for the 1,000 years over that spot on the earth, over that little spot on this earth. Wow. And you know what? That can be, and many of the places is, hey, when you see an orange as big as a grapefruit, hey, when you see a persimmon as big as an orange, when you see the fruit that's grown over there, that one branch of grapes in Israel, it took 2 men to carry one cluster of grapes back over into the land that those other guys made them lose. There were 2 fellas that said, hey, man, we can take them. They're not but like ants. And those other guys said, no, they're giants. They were looking wrongly. They were looking in the flesh. If you look in the flesh, you will fail. You've got to look through God's eyes at things and say, you know what's happening, Lord. You know what's happening. And that's just it. You know what's happening. And so God does. And let's get in the Lord and get in what he has for us. My time's come and gone. I'm going to close for now. I'll see you next time you check in with PH Tidbits from the Word. Bye-bye.